Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am super thrilled to have Jenn Quader on the show today. You're the president and CEO of the Smart Agency, a PR firm. But I was watching your TEDx talk earlier, and you've had such a rich, robust life. So thank you for being here. I really want to take it back because I think a lot of those skills and things that you did early probably have made you such a great leader and given you the skill set to be successful in your own agency.
Well, thank you for that. I think you are right. I think that we are a product of kind of the sum of all of our parts, and that often, and that's kind of the crux of the TEDx talk that I just gave in Paris is, you think you're walking in the wrong direction because it doesn't seem perhaps perfectly aligned. You can't exactly see the end, but in truth, all of those little wrongs make the right. So yeah, I got my background, my professional background was first in performing, in musical theater, in voice and dance, which is its own level of self-expression, of course. So I think that laid a really good foundation for a career in strategic comms. And then I did go get educated both at a bachelor's and a master's degree in both journalism and PR, so that I do have the technical skills, to do it on both sides, but definitely a unique off the beaten path kind of journey.
But how fun.
So much fun. One of my favorite memories is, my very first job after high school was working on cruise ships as a singer-dancer. And I remember running back into the dressing room and sitting down because you have to change your shoes real fast. It's time for a different dance number. And I'm changing my shoes and I just stopped for a minute and smiled. And I was like, they're paying me to do this. This.
Yeah, you're like, tell them I would do this for free.
Exactly. But I got to tell you, I felt similarly then when I went, after I was a performer, I knew I wanted something a little more stable, and I've always liked PR. And so when I actually joined my first agency, which was Hill & Knowlton, I remember I was working on the Michelin account, and we got to go to the Clio Awards, the advertising awards, and we were bringing the Michelin Man. And I'm going to tell you, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I called my professor. I was like, guess where I get to go? So you get excited about just about anything in our industry.
I think people can also get jaded with all of the changes in industry, with consolidations, I remember the days, I pull the story out occasionally, but not often, because it ages me. But when we faxed press releases and then called to make sure they got them, and that's how we had to follow up, because there was no such thing as the internet and sending things over the wire the way we do now, and being able to do all of our workflows in online systems.
Look, I think you bring up such a good point to say that there's an element of jaded that can come in, because there is so much. And I'm flabbergasted by what we do. I hear people in our industry and those who I grew under who would talk about how they would come in, hey, we had to be in at 5:00 in the morning so we could gather all the newspapers to actually clip them out, make photocopies, and drop them off on the executive's desk. So, and now the expectation is you're in the office and you've already read all the stories, where everything was, and, you have 75 things written because AI has helped you. I think that there is an expectation that we can do 100 times more because our technology has the capacity to do 1,000,000 times more, but we're still humans. And I think that the human brain, the original thinking that comes through us, the energy that we create as humans, that to me is where the magic of PR and branding comes from. We tell people this a lot at the Smart Agency. When people come to us for, say, a website, we say look, anybody can build you a website. You can get some guy in their garage to build you a website. You have to think about the strategy. Wow. You have to have someone who can really see and connect the dots and have a frame of reference for not only what do you think you want to do, because companies come to us, we're PR comms advisors. They come to us and they think they know what they want to do. But not only what do you think you want to do, but what are all the other elements that are affecting your target audience, your industry, what's coming down the pike? That is not something, even AI with all of its, and I peeked at your background, I see that you are creating on AI, you are teaching on AI, so you're an expert here and I'm not. But even with all of that, I think there's an opportunity to break through our jadedness by using our curiosity, by really turning that spin.
Well, and I love everything you just said. And it really makes me think AI is supposed to be a tool that helps us with some of the minutia and little tasks. We still have to be the creative thinkers. We have to have the space and the time to create the strategy, to be the humans, because that's not something AI can take away. And, it can create brand positioning and some things, but it can't do it without our input. And I hate it when people fast forward and don't do that work and they think they're ready to launch, or they have a website and a logo, but they don't really know who they are. And, or like you said, they think they want to go in this direction, but that's not really where they should be focused on.
I couldn't agree more. And often you do need that consultant, because sometimes these are really smart, intelligent people that, they can't see beyond themselves. They think, oh, I love that magazine, or, oh, I love that color, but they haven't thought through those implications. And then it's interesting you point out, AI really is a tool. And I hear so many people say, you hear everything from like, it's taking over the world to it's evil to all. I'm like, it's just a tool. I used this example with a media outlet recently. I said, it's like, the AI is a race car. We are the NASCAR drivers. The driver gets the trophy. The driver takes the car around. The car still has to be good. It still has to be built well and has to do its thing. And I think there are so many well-built cars in the world of AI today, but it's our job to get in the driver's seat and do it. And I think where we get some of that jadedness, to circle back to some of what people in our industry might be finding, is that they're like, oh my gosh, I got to do this again. I got to relearn from the beginning. And that right there is kind of the crux of what I'm trying to say in my TEDx. Like one of the first strategy I give on how to navigate change is get in the business of reinventing yourself. 100%. And we do it for our clients, but can we do it for ourselves? Can I sit my booty in there and learn to use an AI tool and in a way that it's going to help my clients? Yes, of course I can. I just have to make time to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you saying that I am very enmeshed in the world of AI. I talk to founders every day, a couple founders. I do a lot of AI trainings every day so that I can learn. But I'm really looking at it from the consumer perspective of how do I help other people who might not have budgets, who might not understand marketing, just get a little further ahead. And then maybe they will have budgets and they can work with an agency like yours to get them to the next level. But I really want to try all the tools out myself and help people just understand how to use them, or which ones are maybe a little better than the one that they think is good, because that's the biggest one in the market.
And that's so valuable. I think that's something I've seen in your podcast, that you are all about kind of mining for that valuable information. And then I think with you as an educator, it's a good role for you to be in, that you're pushing people to look at these tools from different angles and to see. And I really like the example of like, don't just use just the one you've heard of. Yeah. There's more to learn. There's more to do and to see. So I think as long as we, as communicators, as PR people, as long as we are willing to come in with an open mind and say, all right, I'll try that. I'll dip my hand in. And then as long as we carve out the time to do it, I've heard you also say on your show, and I've certainly said it, that we tend to be the cobbler's children running around barefoot while everybody else gets shoes. So it is also a matter, I think, of discipline within your own practice, whether it's, a solopreneur or a company, that there's a disciplined approach to how you are learning about new innovations and how you are learning about trends and how those are being affected. I know at our company, we have a school program that we do every week. We do commercial real estate school, and it combines trends in commercial real estate all across different product types, across different sectors, but it also combines how our technologies and marketing strategies and PR strategies being used in effective ways. So we have to kind of put out our own feelers as the storytellers, the communicators, so we can go carve it out and understand it and then come back and tell everybody what it's like.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to, there's a couple things in there that you said that I want to get to, but before that, so you worked in another agency, and at what point did you jump into buying this agency? What was the process like, and what did that journey look like for you?
Really amazing. It was truly kind of fell into place in a cool way, but also with a lot of time. So I had worked at Hill & Knowlton. I was there for maybe 4 years or something. And I got a call from this woman who owns a boutique agency. And I did know a couple of people who had worked with her. And I knew that it was focused in commercial real estate. And that is all I knew about commercial real estate. And so this was like end of 2010. And so the world had ground to a halt, right? It was just after, the Great Recession. Everything was really slow. So I go and join this agency. And when I first interviewed with the lady who owned it, she had started the company in 1994. And she is like a powerhouse. Like, this is a woman who was like, I am a woman owning a business in 1994. Like, she owned this sector. And when I went and talked to her, she knew immediately what she wanted to do. She knew, I don't want to own this in 10 years, is kind of how she put it. And so we started really early with just kind of an understanding between us. Hey, if you like it, you'll stick around. If I like you, we'll stick this together. So we ended up doing that for 10 years. And I would recommend that to anyone who is thinking of and has the opportunity. The longer you can work in that firm, the better, because your hands get all into it. I was able to really sit and learn the history of commercial real estate and how it has grown. When I first entered the industry, even just 2010, 2011, it was not the institutional asset class that it is today. It did not attract the same level of global dollars from endowments and pension funds and institutions. And today, it is a major, I think $4 trillion industry. So what happened is, I fell in love with the industry. I fell a little bit in love with my seller. She was really brilliant. And so over that 10 years, we just worked through ownership such that at the end of it, I took over. And now she runs a very wonderful art consulting practice within the commercial real estate industry. It's still called Brower, Miller & Cole.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that kind of transition, because I will be frank, I went into an agency with a possible roadmap to becoming the CEO, quickly realized that where I am in my life with having a daughter who's about to graduate, that, I want to spend a lot of time with, and the other things that I was doing, it probably wasn't the right timing. And that can cause some conflict and some, we have to figure out how to navigate the feelings and the disappointment on both sides. Did you have any of that within this partnership?
Yes. That's where the real honest, and I think everybody's story is their story, right? So I would never want to say there are women I have met, oh my word, who own agencies and have babies and rock this planet, and I'm amazed by them. But I definitely had that, and I speak a little bit about it in my TEDx. I had an infertility journey where I thought I was going to have kids, and I kept being surprised that I wasn't having them. And somewhere around kind of middle to latter part of our journey, there was definitely a time where I was realizing, hey, if I do get pregnant, I'm not going to be able to do this thing that I see, that I know that I would need to do. And I did voice that. I remember voicing that to my seller at the time. And again, we were fortunate that we already had this long-term relationship. So she was understanding, and we chatted that through. In the end, I made the decision, hey, I want the business, and I chose, because I think we all know you can keep trying to have babies as long as you might want to. But I chose to say, hey, okay, that was my journey. This is now my company. But I really understand where you're coming from, because when you take over a PR agency, it's not like you just jump right on the skateboard and keep it going. You know what I mean? It's a whole new world. And especially in today's world, you have to reshape everything every few years. You got to reshape your messages, reshape your culture, reshape how everything feels. So I do agree with you. I think there's a lot of pressure on women, but women who have kids and who want to have that beautiful life and go with their kids to Greece. And you know what I mean? And again, I don't want to pretend like that can't happen, because there are so many women who do it. But just speaking from my experience, yes, it definitely, not having kids gave me more freedom and more time to do what needed to happen for me to acquire the agency in 2018.
Yeah. And I do remember that part of your TEDx talk where the pictures of you with every party, I mean, my heart was going out to you. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that journey. I feel very fortunate that I had one child. I wanted more children. It didn't happen. I went through a couple of rounds of IUI. I couldn't even get to the IVF because it was so emotional and so hormonal for me. I was like, I need to be here for the kid I have. And then that also was a fortunate thing, because then when I got divorced, I was able to go back to the workforce. And, I had we had family businesses, but I needed to go get a jobby job. And I was able to do that. But I think if I'd had more children, I would have felt even more guilt over it. So it's not an easy decision that you had to make, but it was the one that, is turning out to be the right one. And you've built this amazing agency with fantastic people. I want to know a little bit about, because there's high interest rates, there's all these things going on, there's fluctuations, maybe not as much on the commercial side, although we have seen after the pandemic, not as much rent, people are renting space. How has that affected your business and how you have to position your clients?
Such a good question. And, we're all cartwheeling right now, and we're kind of mid cartwheel. So if you caught us, hopefully we look like cheerleaders. No, the truth is there's been massive disruption. Massive. You can't raise interest rates 7 times in 1 year and not have massive disruption. So there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of freezing, and retreating, which I talk about a little bit in my TEDx. But there's also so much innovation. I spoke about this before I did my TEDx. I did some speaking stuff for my team, and I was talking about the commercial real estate industry in general. And I said, we are the Madonna of industries because, and you can think of it this way, like think about whatever shopping center you would go into today.
Yeah.
Doesn't that look really different than the one you went into 15 years ago?
100%.
Yeah. Right? Like any place, even if you went to a manufacturing facility, if you never visited that before, but if you went and looked today, it would look so much different than it did 10 or 15 years ago. So what I think is, yes, it has affected our business. Yes, we have seen clients who are going, hey, I don't have any business. What's happening? But equally, we're seeing clients who really understand the opportunity. And this is when fortunes are made. The truth. It is in periods of disruption that people who put their mind forward and say, I'm going to focus on innovation. I'm going to focus on resilience. I'm going to focus on what I have, and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to tell this story in a general sense because it's not mine to tell, but I was interviewing this man who owns a firm in LA, big firm in commercial real estate. And he was talking about during the Great Recession so many years ago. And he said at that time they had built up to something like 100 people. And when they got down to the recession, they got down to something like 12 people. And he said they were literally taking it was either the state or the city funded, they were kind of paying themselves part-time and then getting like part-time help from to keep the company alive. And today now they have 200 people. There's a boomerang that comes back. So I think that now is the time in commercial real estate, but also in PR to really look beyond that horizon. Like if you envision that you're standing on the deck of a ship and there's a storm, like sure, there's a storm, but like look beyond where we're going. That's where all the opportunities are. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of people who want to look at where is my brand today and how is it going to stand up for the next 5 years? Ooh. We're seeing a lot of refreshing of key messages and branding. We're seeing a lot of hybrid turning what used to be really focused external communications to a blend of external and internal because the dynamics between employer and employee have changed tremendously, and that affects the effectiveness of a company. So I think in general, there are lots of trends. All roads lead to more communication.
Yes.
So it's a good time to be in our business.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're saying that because I think people often try to cut communications and marketing, but without that, how are you going to get your message out? So what are all the services that you do offer? Are you full service, soup to nuts?
Yes, we're full service soup to nuts. So we are PR firm in our blood, meaning we started as PR. We know how to do publicity very specifically for B2B, heavily in commercial real estate and finance. And then we also do web design and email design and social media. And really, I like to call us a communications agency because what I believe is it's not about the tactic. It's not about, we can do an email, a press release, a social post. It is about the strategy behind it. And really what we like to do is we have clients that we've worked with, a couple of them for 30 years, So we like to have long-term relationships and we understand that client businesses are going to change. So where we bring the most value is advising and supporting and executing communications on everything from your external publicity to your external newsletters, to your social media, to your investor events, your groundbreakings, really it's every touch point. How can they be sure that they understand your brand, your investment strategy, your people? Those are really our services.
Yeah. You're singing my words. I'm so invested in the peso model and making sure people are really thinking about the integration and those consistent touch points. So I love that you do that work.
I'm going to sign up for your class. I like it.
I'd love to know a couple things. One is, have you ever had a situation where you've had to fire a client because they weren't willing to make the changes or other, reasons?
That's a great question. I got to think about that. We're so, it's really hard to fire a client. I'm trying to think if I've actually ever really, not flat out. I think there have been client relationships that we both know it's not. Don't, you know what I mean? And luckily, I can fortunately say we're not in those right now. But there have definitely been relationships where you see the writing on the wall. What you see is every time you bring a recommendation, it's kind of shot down by the other. To be perfectly honest, we did get a lot of, I'm going to use the word flack when AI first came out, because we got a lot of people who would be in the meeting and be like, well, look, I can write the press release with ChatGPT. And it's like, yeah, you sure can. And if it's strategic and aligned with all of your goals, and if it's going to contribute to your bottom line, then you should hire ChatGPT, But in general, I didn't find that to be overly negative. I found it most to be people who were interested, but there were a couple of people. And this is just where their belief is. They just believed, oh, well, that's better than what you guys can do. And if you believe that, whatever you believe is real for you. So I think in that case, for that client, we kind of both mutually agreed, hey, what we're bringing, you're kind of saying no to, etc. In general, I don't really like to have to fire clients. I'm remembering one years ago, back before I owned the agency, where he yelled at me and cussed. And we don't do that. We don't allow that. So that was the only one I can think of where we actually said, sorry, sir, we're not going to work with you because we're professionals, So, but in general, our clients are really nice. They're nice people and they're really smart. So it's fun to have highly intelligent people. They tend to be too busy thinking to, to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. And then on the other side, what about hiring a team? I'm sure that you inherited some team members from previous, but then you also had to staff up with new people. And what are some qualities that you look for that you find work really well when building a team?
Oh, great question. Bravery is the first quality that I look for. I really like brave people. I think that I don't want to use the word pandemic. We're all tired of that. But there is an epidemic, pandemic, a little bit of a sad thing that's happening among a lot of our youth. And I understand it. I'm not blaming them, but they've spent their whole life hidden behind their device. And that's all they know how to do. And it's all they're comfortable with. So, you have this kind of generational pull that says, oh, well, I'm that age. And so I don't pick up the phone and call clients. And we say, well, at our company, you pick up the phone and call clients. So I think bravery is the first. And I mean, look, a baseline ability to communicate is required. You know what I mean? We actually do a writing test for every single, whether you're an artist or a administrator, whatever, you have to do a writing test before we will even give you a first interview.
Amazing.
Because I learned a long time ago that I like people. Yeah. So when I meet them, I'm like, oh, I
can tell. No, that's the guy, because I have that same, vibe.
Yeah, I feel that from you, that kind of warm, open energy. But there's a level of discernment, when we're communicators, you have to be able to get your idea across. So I'd say that what I'm always looking for is I'm looking for brave people who know how to get their idea across. Everything else can be taught. You know what I mean? So all the other skills can be taught, but you got to be able to sit down with me and make me feel like, I'd spend 2 hours having coffee with you and expressing ourselves.
Fantastic. And I appreciate the word bravery, because I don't think that's a word people use often to describe qualities that they're looking for, but it is true. I know young people who are very brave, and I know young people who are not, and who do hide behind their screens and don't want to go out and get real jobs or drive cars or do anything that involves people. So
I really understand, because I didn't grow up with the same level of visibility that they have into life's difficulties. Life is so hard, right? It's so hard. It is painful and scary. People do get into car accidents. People do have, horrible things do happen. And my message, my hope, my prayer is live life anyway. Yes. Call the client anyway. And so as long as we can instill this, and to me, it is resilience, it is innovation, it is excitement, it is love for life. But if you can instill that, and to me, bravery is such a really cool way to do it, because being courageous feels good.
Yeah.
Once you do it, it feels good. So it's one of our key core values at the company. And it's been a major way that we, I think, have gotten our people to think beyond what they see, which I think is a tremendous value as a communicator. Anybody can take orders. You tell us to write a press release, we write a press release, we send it. But if you can be brave and think beyond what the information is and really connect that, and then pick up the phone and actually communicate what you're thinking, hey, I was thinking this didn't make sense, and here's why. Boy, are you going to get a more robust, more sticky strategy that can actually affect the bottom line of the company you're helping.
Yeah. I could just talk to you for hours, I think, because I can just keep asking you questions and picking your brain. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on that you were able to take, somebody who was maybe a little unformed or had been working with another agency and they just really weren't getting the results and you were able to skyrocket and give them that big aha?
That's a really good question. I think my favorite, we work on so many different projects. I have a real place in my heart for affordable housing. We all know that it is hugely in need right now, and we have a major provider of investor in affordable housing. And I think one of our biggest success stories was, they too went through the Great Recession and they too were rebuilding themselves. And we were able to help them. They closed 2 different funds, then rolled into an open-ended fund. So they've had great, huge success with attracting institutional capital. And a lot of that has been through this combination where, when I acquired the agency, we were really heavy just in strategic PR. But since I acquired it, we've expanded out to do their events, to do their videos, to do really this kind of 360-degree storytelling and watching the business impact. I mean, their company, their leadership meeting, I think it might have started with 12 people and I was just at it and it was like 300 or something.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
So to watch that in action, it's amazing. And to know that it's really honestly helping people all over the US, that's a cool thing.
That leads perfectly into my next question, which is your client base. Is it national? Is it global? It sounds like it's not regional based on that client that you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's not regional. It's definitely national. A lot of our clients, they sit all over and they invest all over is what I'd say. So many do sit in Orange County. A lot don't invest in Orange County. Maybe they're investing in Texas or Nashville or Florida, the Sun Belt. There's been a lot of that over the past few years. So, but we really have clients all over. We have clients in New York, Chicago, Florida, etc. A lot of our clients work with entities outside the US, so we have done some global work. Most of our clients don't sit over there. They more do work with investors from Europe and from Asia and different places. So we do kind of some cross-cultural work in that regard, but mostly it's throughout the United States.
Nice. And I'm going to link to your YouTube, to the TEDx talk, as well as your website. But you're a poet, an author, and a recording artist, and you have an album coming out. How do you manage? Oh my gosh, can you tell?
Listen, that's one of those things. Okay, so everybody was like, oh, the TEDx, that has to be like a bucket list. No, the TEDx was just like a cool thing. Like, thank you, universe, God, whatever you believe in. That came at a time where I happened to have all this material together. I love to speak. Like, that was really cool. The real bucket list is my daddy is about to turn 80 years old. And my daddy is one of the best piano players you have ever heard. And he and I and my family, I have 2 sisters and a brother, we grew up singing together, being on television every Christmas in my hometown. I kid you not. We were called the Musical Michaels. And when I was little, I wrote, and I didn't discover this, I have to tell you, I went back, this was during the pandemic, because, we all went like deep inside ourselves during the pandemic, right? And I took this trip. I told my husband, I need to be alone. And so I had to take a trip alone. And I brought all my journals with me. And I start reading through my journals. And I cannot tell you, like almost every journal, I wrote something about, I want to make a real album with my dad. I want to make a real album with my dad. So it just happened. So we got everything organized last year. I worked really hard. We actually got a piano and I learned to play it. I had like a little training when I was young, but I've learned a lot more. And we went into the studio in October of last year. We actually got some really amazing kind of class A heavy hitter musicians who came with us. That was just, again, a gift from the universe. So that album is coming out end of this year. It's called Love in All Its Forms. And it's all just vocal jazz. It's all about love. To me, it dovetails with everything I'm doing. Because, for a little bit, you're like, am I going to look crazy? I own a commercial real estate and finance PR firm and I'm singing but the truth is, you got to be who you are, right? And I am definitely like an entertainer, a singer. I'm definitely those things. But what I really am is I'm all about like you got to shine. And my way of shining is I write and I sing and I lead and I do. Everybody has their way of shining. But I think to me, that's what the jazz album is about. It's like, that's my little candle that I'd like to put out to the world.
Yeah, well, and that helps you with the creativity and strategy for your clients because it makes you're a happier person because you're getting to live in this outlet that you love.
Oh, I got to tell you, my team is so happy. But so I've got my executive vice president and I've worked together for 10 years. I love her. I have a couple of others who've worked with me for 7 years, 6 years, 5. But she and I have worked really closely together for 10 years. And we laugh about a little bit, because we went through a tough time together. Real estate was picking back up whenever I was buying the agency. But of course, we've gone through a tough time together as the pandemic has come in. But she keeps commenting like, Jenn, like, you're staying so calm. Like, how do you? And I was like, I'm doing my music, Lexi. I'm doing my music. So yeah, I think there is something to say, and I'll give a little shout out. I wish I had it in my hand, but I'll give a shout out to there's this guy named Cliff Beach. He's a performer in the Los Angeles market, and he wrote a book called Side Hustle and Flow. Cliff Beach. And it really is all about everything that we all are talking about right now in the workplace, which is like, how do we get to have it all? How do we get to be good, strong professionals and also good family people and also do the things that make an album, And I think the answer is flow. Let yourself flow. Let yourself do it. Be honest. Tell people like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So that's what.
So amazing. I'm definitely going to check out that book. I'd like to know, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, verse?
I do. And I'm going to pull it off of my wall because I love it. This is Miss Oprah Winfrey. I love that woman. I always have. I think, we all have our things. But I love that she says, nobody but you is responsible for your life. She said, it doesn't matter what your mama did or what your daddy didn't do. You are responsible for your life. You are responsible for the energy that you create for yourself, and you're responsible for the energy that you bring to others.
That's my job.
Boom. But I think there's so much in that, and it's a hard thing. People go through lots of different things. As I mentioned earlier, life is hard, like actually hard. It's painful and hurts, and there's all sorts of tough things. But I think that when it comes to achieving our dreams, to, getting the careers we want, to advising clients the way we want, at the end of the day, it really does come, to navigating AI, all the things we've talked about today. It really comes down to taking responsibility for ourselves and saying, I'm going to go to the light. I'm going to turn to positivity rather than going, oh, why is everything so terrible? Why did this happen to me? I think there's just a different way to look at it that can make us all thrive. So why not?
Yeah. I really loved our conversation, Jenn. You bring such great energy, enthusiasm. I can see why when Andrew, a former colleague of mine who works with you, reached out and he's like, you're just going to love her. And yes, he was absolutely correct.
Well, right back at you, Annika. You are such an inspiration. I already know how hard podcasting is. We're just starting our own. We're starting a podcast called Resiliency, the podcast.
Oh,
and thank you so much. And it's even more amazing now that I know you've done something like 368 episodes because you are a powerhouse girl. So I'm inspired by what you do. I'm really inspired by your education, the work you do there. There's so much we have to do to give back to our next generation. And the fact that you're doing that with graduate students, like that's exactly where they need it. They need that. They need to learn all the things that you're teaching them about strategy. So again, I'm just honored to be a part of it and really grateful for all you do to tell the stories of PR people everywhere.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And, this is why I'm not working fully in an agency life anymore is because I do have a passion for teaching. And I love it so much. And whether it's through the podcast or in the classroom. So I'm really grateful that you were able to join me today and bring your knowledge, expertise, and your light to us. I will link to thesmartagency.com in the show notes, as well as I'd love to share your TEDx talk with more people as well, so that they can hear all about resiliency and get teed up to listen to your podcast.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Again, such an honor for me to be here. And just thank you so much for the questions, the opportunity, and the chance to share the voice. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode for listening and learning a little bit more about how you can make your life better, whether you are the owner or you're the employee or you're the client. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing guest. In the meantime, enjoy this episode. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.